Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Catherine, and I'm the Big Vision Coach, and I'm your host of the Daily One Command. And I hope you are having a wonderful day wherever you are. I'm already off to a fantastic start because I get to be with you. So let's get started. This is once again one of those words, one of these topics that is seems very benign, simple, everybody understands it. Pardon me, a frog. But then when we really start looking into it, it's a lot more complicated until it's not. And so today's commands are about deserving abundance. And right now, without me sharing any context, any frame, when you think about deserving abundance, deserving good into your life, when you tune into that internally, what is your first thought? What feeling or impression first comes up for you? We're going to come back and check on this, but just pay attention to this for a moment. The lens that we're going to look at abundance through is this today, and it's a wonderful quote by Mark Victor Hansen, an incredible motivational and speaker and success coach, one of the authors of Chicken Soup for the Soul and many other books. But here's what Mark Victor Hansen has to say about deserving. Dedicate yourself to the good you deserve and desire for yourself. Give yourself peace of mind. You deserve to be happy. You deserve delight. And I want you to just sit with that for another moment. In fact, I'm going to say it again because there's a missing key here. Dedicate yourself to the good you deserve and the desire for yourself. Give yourself peace of mind. You deserve to be happy. You deserve delight. Right now in our modern society, particularly in the United States, I'm not sure how it is. I think the United States has its own particular set of circumstances and conditioning. But there are a lot of people walking around with this entitlement, which is very different than deserving, which is very different than worthiness. And entitlement is based on this idea of who they are and who you ought to know who they are. And by some virtue of their existence, they have the right to demand more. They have the right to demand rules be broken, time, effort, energy, attention. They deserve a bigger space, everything. Just by virtue of who they are, and operating in that way diminishes and takes away from others. In fact, the only way that entitlement can exist is through a system of overt oppression. Okay, that's what that comes from. There is no way that someone can be entitled without oppressing another person. And so we are not talking about entitlement. We are going to talk about the difference between deserving and worthiness. And we're going to do commands around that. And I want to shift you into a different idea about deserving. Okay, so I don't know if you've heard of Tim Ferriss. He's been around for a while. He is famously the author of the book, The 10-Hour Work Week. And if you haven't read his story, Tim was a business person or still is, but at the time of his revelation, he was a business person who was completely burned out by the success of his business. He was working more and more hours. He was getting more and more stressed. He was making money, but he didn't seem to be keeping the money, and he just was getting fried. And when he thought about his business, he was starting to get a lot of anxiety. And so this set him on. He said, I've just got to take a break. Let me take a month off. And that month turned into, I think, a few years. And when we meet Tim in the story that he's telling about himself and his method in the 4-Hour Work Week, he introduces himself as someone who has won a lot of different kinds of championships. Was on television, and he had a chance to speak at a lot of different places, and he really was an ordinary guy. In fact, at the start of the story, he's in the story opens with him in a tango dance competition in Buenos Aires, the tango dance capital of the world, and he's there as a competitor. And he'd only been there for a few months before he entered the contest, and he's in a contest with a lot of people who had studied and dedicated their lives to this art form, the tango. And they had sacrificed. And yet here's Tim, who's decided that he wanted to learn it. And now he's in a very serious competition that, they take all these levels very seriously. And he's with someone who's been an instructor for many years. And he says, let's just have fun. And as we start meeting Tim and learning more about Tim, he talks about how he won a martial arts competition in Southeast Asia. And it wasn't because he was the person who had studied the longest, who had worked the hardest. It was because he had read the rules of engagement. And he said, how do we win? And what do I need to do in order to win this competition? Having never studied it, he had a basis in martial arts, but not in this form. And he had certainly, of course, not studied, sacrificed, bled the way the other people were in the competition. In fact, he found a loophole. And he found out that if you can push people out of the boundaries and they stay out of the boundaries for a certain amount of time, that's points. You can win by gathering points and doing this. So basically, he spent the whole competition pushing people out of the ring. Now, I'm telling a very condensed story. I highly recommend you reading his book. But what gave him the right? What would possibly make Tim Ferriss think that he would deserve to go compete in these areas? Well, one, what were the rules about competing? Am I allowed to join? Yeah. So Tim learned the rules. Then he focused his time, energy, effort on practicing the key performance indicators. And he was in the right form. He had the right outfit on. He learned the language, and he focused on the key moves that would that would help him win, that would put him in the right place. Now, if he'd gone there with other moves, if he'd gone there as a wrestler, which he was had been a high school wrestler, and he had tried wrestling moves, he would have been eliminated, right? And go, Catherine, what the heck are we talking about? We're talking about consciousness. We're going to get there in just a second. But the most important thing is he showed up ready to compete. And he had this attitude that win or lose, he's going to get the benefit of the learning. And there's several key points in here that I want you to get. And once again, I really encourage you to take a look at Tim Ferriss's book, 4-Hour Work Week. In fact, the whole series is amazing. And he wrote these 3 books, and then the last book is the one that really ties all of it together. But they're an easy read, they're practical, they're strategic, and you're allowed to get right into his mind and how he thinks about things. What are the measurables? It's a brilliant book. So I want to talk just a little bit about the difference between worthy and deserving. Now, in the ordinary, definition, we might think worthy and deserving are interchangeable, but deserving denotes that we have earned something, and it goes to functional value. Okay, we've earned it, we've got our place, right? And very often, we have to understand what the rules are. What are the standards? What are the terms? If you had a chance to listen to the decision video that I did yesterday, it's here in the playlist. But we talked about the terms, the time, the effort, the resources, the money. What are the specifications? And have we done an internal agreement? Are we saying, yeah, I agree to those terms and I'm willing to abide it, right? And uphold that. And according to those terms, I'm going to make my decision and act accordingly. And we're kind of talking about that with deserving to a degree. Worthiness is not about doing, but about being, and it goes to essence. So here's the difference. In worthy, we could think about gold. And if you just had a pile of gold there and you saw it and you went, yep, there's a pile of gold, and you didn't understand that some people in some places, this is considered to be a very valuable asset. But if you take that gold and you shove it up against a door and you use it as a doorstop, it still has great value just from its essence. But then if you were to take that gold and start working it and using it for different things, like all the things we use gold for, we have the industrial applications, we have fine jewelry, we have dental, we have ways that we use it in art and that type of thing. The more that we start working with it and applying it and increasing its function and its use, then its value starts going up. And that can't be taken away. But its inherent worth never changes, but its value could change depending on how it's used and where it's put, right? And let's say if you were a starving person and you needed to eat and right this minute or you would die, and someone put a pile of gold in front of you, you would still die, right? So even though it has inherent value in the world in that moment, it may not be of any use to you. But what do you deserve in that moment? You deserve food, water, air. You deserve the chance to keep living. And yet, where we get into trouble is we put all of that as all of those terms, those conditions, whoever gets to determine that outside of us. And this is why Mark's quote is so important: to dedicate yourself to the good you deserve and desire for yourself. So your time, your effort, your energy, and what you're creating has to be based on what you deserve, want, and need for yourself. And desire is very different than wanting. Our wants change, our desires do not. Give yourself peace of mind because you alone have that power. You deserve to be happy. You deserve delight. And this deserving comes not from what anyone else outside of you, any person, place, or thing, any thought, image, or idea from the past, the present, or can ever arrive in the future can change that. unless we agree. What's interesting is that the people who determine what we deserve when we look at outside of us have a funny way of changing those rules. Have you noticed that? If you've ever worked a job at any level, anywhere, and you go, what do I need to succeed? And the boss says, show up on time, look the part, work hard, go above and beyond the expectations. We have basic expectations, but if you just do what's the norm, that's not going to be enough, even though that's the terms of employment. And yet somehow in going above and beyond becomes the norm, and the goalpost is always moving. And you could do every single thing and follow every rule and give up everything that makes you happy, fulfilled, fulfills your own needs of yourself or the people that you love and care about, who you have responsibility for. And yet, the one who made those rules outside of you have no problem with changing them as soon if it suits them. We used to as the One Command world, we were doing a lot of business partnering with people who were in this one particular direct marketing MLM type of organization. And everyone loved this company because how it was set up and how it was different. And everyone was enrolling, and there was a lot of success. And the company would come out and say, okay, we've got a new contest. We have new rules. We have this. And everybody's like, yeah, that's good. Let's do it. We love challenging ourselves. We love rising up. Okay, that's a little different than before, but okay, we can adjust, right? And they kept applying more and more and more until the company just completely changed the one basic rule that made everything worth it. And I never saw people who believed in not only a company and get so angry, but they turned that in on themselves. And they said, how did I put all my belief and trust in, once again, in another company, rather than putting your trust and faith in yourself, in putting trust and faith in your own intuition, your own guidance, your own inherent worth, and you being the one who decides what you deserve. And in that deserving, it doesn't take away from anyone else. And here's the thing, a lot of that idea about deserving and worthiness comes from outside of us, from whatever system we were raised in, whether we were in a family situation or raised by an institution. It comes through all of this conditioning. We could look at family systems, religion. What are the operating systems of the world? How are things oriented? In the United States, we're set up on a punitive system. Everything is punishment, and everything's about avoiding punishment. So we're not even trying to advance for merit, for our good, for a greater good. But ultimately, what's underneath that, and what's even set up from the very beginning, is avoiding punishment and shame. And so what winds up happening is maybe a victim mentality comes in, but eventually we just feel like, what's the point of trying when it's only going to change anyway? What is the point? And you have to reorient yourself to your innate deserving to be happy, and reorient yourself to your ability to create that happiness, that delight, and to make a whole new game. but a game that in the fulfillment and as we play, we bring greater value. We increase the value, but we always say in that fulfillment, and in its fulfillment, a greater good arrives. And that it's not having to take from anyone else. In fact, your good, your advancement, as you keep aligning to deserving and your inherent worthiness, guess what happens? This becomes your internal state of being, and then this becomes the atmosphere around you, and you start flipping and shifting consciousness all around you, and people start having a different experience and different expectations. And you may be with people that no matter what you do, you're not going to deserve it. And you're naturally either going to you're going to just naturally gravitate away. Whatever those bonds, that trauma bond that held you will dissolve, and you'll be freer to pursue what you desire. Or they shift their consciousness. There's a whole new conversation. And I have client after client talk about this, where they go, I had this person, they were making my life hell, and they were telling me how useless and worthless, and I didn't deserve, and it was a nightmare. And when I shifted, it was like they shifted. It was like somebody, walked into their body, and it was like, who are you, and what did you do with that other person? They're one of my favorite stories. And when we think about deserving and earning and merit and those type of things, it comes down to this. You may not always win or achieve your goal, but you always have the right to try. And that became part of Tim Ferriss's operating system. I have the right to try. I have the right to stretch and expand myself. And so part of what Tim does in his journey, I don't know how many years this was. Now he's involved with more of software development and crypto and that type of thing. He's got a podcast. But what he loved to do was he would go to a country for 6 months, and he had three main things he liked to do. One, he wanted to really get proficient in a language. He is able to learn the rules of how to learn a language very quickly. And became part of his self-identity. I am someone who is able to learn languages very quickly. He developed a systematic approach. He practiced it. He became proficient in it. And then it just became his normal operating system. Two, he loved martial arts. And so whatever the local martial arts thing was, he wanted to go learn it and get better at it. He wanted to take whatever skills he had and apply that. So he would dedicate that time to learning a new martial art form. And then three, he wanted to really have time to be in the culture and experience it and breathe it and taste it and have time to develop relationships. And 6 months was a really good way to do that. And so he set up his whole life and how to organize that, make that happen. And he has a very quick, efficient way of doing that. And he set up his business to serve that mission. Now, you may not want to travel the world and live in places 6 months at a time, right? But you may want to have greater ease and flow, have more joy, delight, happiness. And to have the freedom to dedicate your time, effort, and energy to the good that you deserve simply because you're breathing. And to give time and space to the desire that you have deep within yourself to express it. And so that you have the mental and emotional bandwidth to give yourself peace of mind, to take ownership of what's occupying your own mind. And at the base of your operating system is the belief and the knowing that you deserve to be happy and that you deserve delight. And so does the people around you. And so we offer this as a state of being and that we want to hold this for other people. Kathy sharing my current employment's doing exactly that and requires so much more in many arenas with no more compensation. Time for entrepreneurship again. 100%. 100%. I always held this belief, and I talked about this a long time, like even back in the 80s and 90s. And I don't know where I got this idea, but my dad was a serial entrepreneur. And it really wasn't about business, but it was the business of you. And so I really had this idea about you incorporated, and everything that you're doing, even if you're going to a job, you're in partnership with that job. And as long as it's adding value to you, Inc., right? To the business that you're about, and it's a cooperative, beneficial partnership, I always had freedom. In fact, I was able to bring much more value because I wasn't afraid of losing a job. I didn't have a master or a boss over me. I made myself a partner. Whether they saw me that way or not, it didn't matter. And so I got raises, I went after opportunities, and I had a lot more fun. I never had a good time at a job, but I always had good time with the places I partnershiped in pursuit of growing and developing a successful outcome for Catherine Perry Inc. And I hope that you might think about it that way, and I think that that attitude allowed me to look at look at um, employment opportunities a different way, what I was willing to do, what are the terms when rules would be put on me or whatever. And I would say, no, that's not the original agreement. That's a different conversation. And they'd say, if you want to work here, you do. And I'd be like, well, if you want me to be here, it's going to be different. Like literally having a boss say in the 90s, uh, in a place that was cold and icy, and it was hills that I had to walk up and down, and I was expected to wear a dress and heels and be going around. And I'm like, are you kidding? And I literally said, are you kidding? No, that's not going to happen. They said, but that's the dress code. And I said, well, do I need to go home? And they why? And I said, well, because I don't dress like that. I'm not going to wear that outfit. It's too cold. Or I tell you what, you come here, you dress like that for a day. If you do okay, I'll do it. They wouldn't do it. I said, okay, I'm not going to do it. So do I have a job tomorrow? Do I need to come back? Yes, yes, come back. And they accepted it because part of my internal operating system. And believe me, I worked the other way for a long time. Fear of losing. Oh no, what if? But once I took ownership of Catherine Perry Inc., it changed. And my number one job was to provide whatever was necessary for my happiness and fulfillment and sustenance and for me and my daughter. It was really liberating. I want to seek reward instead of avoiding punishment. Yeah, I mean, this goes to our innate, like our dopamine system. For us to even have a hope, a vision, a dream, we this requires us to say what is the greater good that's going to come from it. And we might even there's a famous um, ad that went out at the turn of the last century, and it was the person who was seeking volunteers for the South Pole. And it's very, very famously, it's like seeking, volunteers for this mission where the conditions are going to be horrible. It's going to be strenuous. It's life threatening. Success is uncertain. And if we prevail, it'll be the greatest thing that ever happened. They could not, there were thousands of people that wanted to be part of that mission because there was something in them that wanted to rise up to meet that. And they were clear in what it was. And people said, yeah, I want that. It's another thing to go in. This is a great place. We're like a family. We all pull together, we're here for each other, and then find out you're actually signed up for that other job, right? So accept what is yours by divine right. We talked about this in the talk about acceptance last week. Naturally accept what is yours internally. And if there's something you want and you didn't come to it, it could be that you were following an old rule that unconsciously sabotaged your efforts about deserving, about worthiness that were put on you by your family, or there could have been something that happened in a job that made you lose trust in yourself. And so forgive yourself, love yourself through it, and make a new agreement with yourself. But if something didn't come to you and you really wanted it, and remember, want and desire are two different things, maybe it's because your standards are too low and the universe had something better for you. I hope this is beneficial today. Who's ready to do some commands? Who wants to command for that greater good? All right. So, what should we command for when it comes to deserving? Well, you can literally command to have a new understanding about deserving versus worthiness. You can command to have a new understanding about what you truly deserve by virtue of just being here, because you're breathing in and out. Sweetheart, you deserve love. You deserve it simply because you're here. You deserve to have your needs met, and you deserve to be treated with dignity and to live a life of dignity. And there are people that somehow told you you weren't, and you carry that wound with you. So maybe there's a part of you that secretly believes it, and secretly feels that. And the way that you know that is because it keeps showing up in your outer life. So we can't know what our consciousness is, and a lot of times we can't know what our blind spot is or what our secret belief is, but we can witness that new understanding coming in and start command. And the way we know that the shift happened is different results start happening in our life. So let's start with, I don't know how I have a new understanding about deserving and worthiness. I only know I do now, and I am fulfilled. I don't know how. I have a new feeling deep inside of me of deserving and worthiness. I only know I have the power to give myself, to create for myself a life I deserve. There we go. That's the one. And what I'm demonstrating for you is, like, people go, what was that one? I want to write it down. What I'm demonstrating for you is how to talk out these commands. Okay. So let's just go very quickly through the 6 steps. First, I just want to invite you to just become present in your body and ground. Good morning, David. Hello, sweet Kathy. I feel like all the Kathys and the Catherines and the Kays and Katies somehow were joined in consciousness. So hello, my Kathy sister there. But let's just ground. Settle into your body and just become aware of your body. As you're aware of your body, Tune into your body, and I invite you to make this statement to yourself, either silently or out loud. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to be cared for. You deserve to be here. You may feel yourself wanting to breathe. Some emotions may come up, but really be present to yourself. You're going to be speaking in the you deserve. The reason we say that is we got this message outside of ourselves, and when we're talking to ourselves, we aren't making I statements, we're making you statements. Once again, you deserve love. Bring your attention to your heart as you're aligning to your purpose. You deserve and are worthy of love. Say that out loud. You deserve and are worthy of love. And I support you. You're speaking right to yourself, right to your heart. And as you're aligning to that deserving and that worthiness, just become aware of your state of being as you acknowledge and affirm that truth. Very lightly lift your chin up, keeping your eyes closed. I would invite you to simply roll your eyes up as you become aware of your connection to Source. And in your mind's eye, picture, visualize, or imagine that you are traveling up a pole of light. And the higher you go, the faster you go, and soon you find yourself surrounded by the velvety black void of space. And in the distance, you see a teeny pinprick of light. Head towards that. And soon you are breaking through the darkness into the light of pure, open potential. Keeping your eyes up, remember to breathe. We're going to state our first command. I don't know how. I have a new understanding about deserving and worthiness. I only know that I am now the one who decides what I deserve. Now and I am fulfilled. And just let your eyes relax. Let that expand out to an idea even greater that serves more good in its fulfillment. Now, roll your eyes back up. I don't know how I came to know and understand my inherent value and worth. I only know that my inherent value and worth deserve time and attention, care and support now, and I am fulfilled. And we're just going to let that go. Let that expand out to an idea even greater. And what's going to happen is, as you're coming into this greater awareness and this higher, greater understanding, and you're from a new level of consciousness, what starts to happen is that new knowing and understanding starts coming into your body, and start receiving with gratitude, and just witness at the same time this direct download from source about your deserving, and witness this new message about deserving and worthiness going down into the different parts of you at different stages of your life when you were made to feel undeserving, unworthy, and you felt shame or anger, resentment, and just let this new understanding come in and do its work, and just witness that energy shifting, unwinding, releasing, and just let all those old feelings, those old emotions, that old playbook just get dissolved. Let all those old rules go. And as this starts to unwind and release, you may start to notice that there's some energy moving within you or not. But whether you feel it or not, there is definitely a change happening at a deep, profound level. And just allow these new ideas, this greater understanding, start to rewind and integrate. And spend some time, do that internal check-in. Remember, I asked you about you deserving abundance at the start of this, and what came up for you. As you think about deserving abundance and happiness, what do you know now? What's true now? And just be present to it. And this is how we are able to start noticing a shift, and this is how we make space for that greater understanding. This is great, definitely a writer downer. So keep a journal of your commands. We do have the worksheets. We don't have a worksheet for this particular talk, but definitely whatever challenges, revelations, and successes you get, you want to keep note of that. And of course, that 7th step is inspired action. Give yourself a chance to try, to attempt it, to find out. Don't decide ahead of time whether or not you deserve it. Get in there and find out. And so when you get that idea, that inspiration or opportunity, go for it, because you deserve the happiness. Well, my dear, I hope that this has been beneficial to you. And I want you to know that I witness your mastery, and you absolutely deserve every happiness. And I support you. So until next time, this is Catherine Perry, the Big Vision Coach, and I love you. You have an amazing day. Bye-bye.